welcome to Living Word Podcast, which you are watching on Living Word TV. This week is Father's Week, and we are back with a bang, and we're here to explore a very important topic, and that's that of fatherhood, especially the influence of man in the home, in the society, and especially in the church. With me this afternoon, I've got some wonderful soldiers of God. To my right, I'd first like to introduce you to Brother Dio. He is an amazing soldier of God, very talented with his voice. Is there anything that you want to, just one thing about you that you'd like to tell us this afternoon?
I'm glad to be in this podcast. It's a privilege to be here at this wonderful time. I just love to do what I love to do. I love to sing. I love to just minister to God with my voice, and it's where I find my soul as regard.
Oh, wow, that's wonderful. Thank you. Dio is also a budding father. He's just recently joined the journey of, the marriage and what that means. So he's going to be telling us more about his experience, that transition. What does it mean? And also to my left, I've got Ragoke.
Yeah.
Can you tell us one thing, because we've met you before on our career seminar.
Yes.
Just tell us one thing about yourself that we should know.
I think it's the fact that I'm still evolving as a man, understanding what this, what it really means to be.
Wow.
And I think the key thing is learning to understand that you're actually playing act of service to your family.
Wow.
That's how you come in.
Act of service to your family. Okay, we're going to be, I don't want us to give everything away yet. We're going to be teasing through that during the podcast. And finally, I'd like to introduce you to Akin Ajibola, Mr. Ajibola. Can you tell us more about yourself?
My full name came out. My name is Akin, and I've been on this journey of being a man for a while. And I know that being a man doesn't start in a day. There's a lot of things that we need to put in place. And I have transitioned to be a husband, a father, and it's been a wonderful experience, a very challenging one. And I think some of the things we're going to explore today will be how to influence our home and make it better. And I think that would transit into the church or the community and wherever we find ourselves.
Thank you. Thank you for all those different views about what it means to be a man. And just to be clear that today we are going to be discussing about the influence, especially the influence of man in the home, in the church, and in the society. Goke, you mentioned about that being a man is about being service. Can you tell us more about that? Before we go into that, what does it actually mean to be a man that is of service? At what point do you transition?
Yeah.
Can you tell us more about that?
So I see it in three phases. Mm-hmm. So growing up, the first role model you see is your dad.
Yeah.
Those are privileged to have a relationship with them. Then you pick up a couple of things. Mm-hmm. After that phase passes on, then you are sort of modeled into a man yourself. You begin to have your own ideologies of the kind of man I want to be.
Yeah.
In that phase, you then say, oh, my dad used to do this. I don't like it. I would drop this. I never saw my dad do this. I would like to do this. And then I would pick up this one. That's phase two.
So in essence, you're trying to weigh up what you see and what you want to become.
Yeah.
But before you go into that third phase, what are the key areas that you need to actually try to understand that what do you want to be different? Where do you want to be different from your dad?
It's
where
based
do you want to be your own
based
self?
on the experience and exposure you had. Because you don't know what you don't know.
Yeah.
What you saw in your dad felt perfect.
Yeah.
But then as you grow on, education comes in, exposure comes in.
Yeah.
And about other things, you'll be like, oh, I never saw this part of my dad. I think I would want to be this, maybe more romantic.
Oh.
Maybe, being there more helping the home and things like that, just as an example. So you have all this in your head in the second phase.
Yeah.
Then the third phase, which is now the reality.
The reality.
Then you're married.
Yeah.
You think this is what being a man is about.
Yeah.
Then your wife tells you, this is the kind of man that works.
Can I hold that thought there, because you're starting to explore what being a man is when you get married. But before we go there, can I just come to you, Akin, in terms of how do you define a man? What is a man? I mean, there are different definitions nowadays. So what is a man to you?
That's should be a very straightforward answer. But nowadays we know that things are not totally black or white. And I like what Goki said in terms of faces. I think people need to look at being a man as a face. We have the physical appearance of what a man is.
Yeah.
In our head, where we grew up, I know that a man usually have certain features biologically, and that makes you a male. That's the right thing to say now. And then when you start growing, you get to a point where the society feels that you should be matured, and then also you should be a man. And they feel that the way you face things or the way you approach things makes you a man.
Yeah.
So is it someone that is weak? When they see someone that is weak, they tell him to man up, or you're struggling, they say man up and face your challenges. Even women will tell you, or ladies tell you, doesn't behave like a man. They want you to reduce your childish ways. So me personally, when I look at a man, I think a man is someone that can take decisions, may not be right, may not be wrong, but I can take decisions and I defend that decision and own up to that decision. And I think it's your decision making makes you a man.
Your decision making
make you a man.
Okay,
so yeah, because as a boy, you can have someone that can defend your decision. So maybe your parents, your friend, your group. But when you become a man, if you look at biblically, if you look at the life of Moses, when he was going to face Pharaoh, even though he had the unction of God, he had to go and face Pharaoh alone and own up to that decision.
And at that point, you would say that he became a man?
He became a man, yes.
Okay.
He became a man because he was running away at one point. He went to to tender a sheep, get the covering of his so-called wife at that time, father-in-law responsibility. But when it became time to make a decision, so it depends on a man, what kind of decision you want to make, whether a decision over your life, yourself, maybe your family, your children, you should be able to take that decision, own up to that decision, and that's what makes you a man. Yes.
Okay, thank you for that. And thank you for that insight. I picked up on a few words that you and Goki have mentioned there. One is around phases. To be a man, you go through different phases. And then, Akin, you mentioned around maturity as well and being able to make decisions. Can I come to you, Dio, because I know that you're going through that phase and that transition. I wouldn't say you're new to it, but what makes that phase, that transition, what makes it difficult in terms of that, that maturity, when you go from the phase of being a boy to being a man, not being.
Yeah, we have the teenagers, and you have the young adults now that they call them.
The young adults, and then being a grown-up man. What makes that transition difficult?
Looking at the world generally, I think our environment is one very key part where we need to take note of, because where we grew up in, the environment where we grew up in makes us who we become. Yeah. And we need to learn to choose how to choose in that environment, because that will help us in the face, truthfully. Because if you look at it, we have our fathers, like Borogoke said. We look towards our fathers and to say, okay, this is what my father is. I think I want to be like my father. Or by the time we start going through the phase, we begin to look at things that we also want to drop. Now, because of the environment we found ourselves, we begin to choose what we want to choose.
And I like the way this is aligning, because that was exactly what you mentioned about, you see some characteristics from your father, and then you see what you want to be, and then you have to start choosing, which of these characteristics do you want in a man. I would like to just go back a little bit to that phase, because I think that phase is really important in the way it shapes men. I'm not a man, I'm a woman. It shapes your identity, it shapes your decision-making skills. What role do you think men play in the society? Not just in the society, I think that's true. Let's go a little bit micro. In the family, especially around that choosing and, that stage of trying to decide what characteristics, what role should fathers play in the family when it comes to that?
It's sort of mixed. So it starts with what you think is right. Then you move what actually.
Okay.
So there's an acceptance. when we talk about what you think is, I pick up on what brother
Mm.
you begin to sometimes your career. Go into a career where potential your personality sort of changes.
Yeah.
You then become a different kind of person. Then you come into the family. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
So there's a conflict between the person who you are at the office and the person you are. So, but when you then begin to understand,
Oh,
then
going back
you
to
begin
that.
to accept this is what works.
Mm.
So at home, I'm the father, I'm the husband. At work, I'm say the manager or the technical director or whatever. Your ability to then manage those two things
Yeah.
comes to maturity. That's what he said. So at that point, you can then say you're a man of your own.
You're a man
You've
of your
come
own.
to a man of your own
Okay.
because you understand the roles you play at different intervals. It's not a smooth transition.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It can take years. I'm still on that journey. It's easy to say, right?
Yeah.
I'm still on that journey.
Yeah.
But I'm beginning to understand, hey, at home, you're the father,
Yeah.
you're the husband,
Yeah.
you serve the children, you serve the wife. When you accept, so humility, maturity is all
Humility,
comes
maturity.
into
Okay.
one. That's when it begins to.
I really like that
Yeah.
perspective, and here I'm going to be really controversial. Because a lot of women that are watching Living Word podcast, you'd want to know that this man here, how are you going to support your partner to make sure that you are being that role model at home and providing acts of service? I'm going to go over to you, Mr. Ajibola.
Yeah,
How
it's
do you balance that? You know, on the one hand, you're a role model, and you know you're coming from work, you're the manager, you're giving orders, but then at home, you have to bring in humility to it to be act of service to your family. How do you go about that transition? How do you manage and balance it?
I think as a man, it's something that you have to grow into, and you have to be open to development and growth. I tell you, it's a very difficult process because naturally, I always tell my wife that a man has testosterone. Testosterone is for domination. No questions asked. Get things done, uproot trees, destroy things, or build something. That's how a man looks at things. But when I like what Goki said about service, but when you get to the area of service, then that's where you have to start understanding, how do I support my wife? How do I make her comfortable? How do I show good examples to my children? And I want to tell you, not only your children, there are many people that look up to you. I remember when I was growing, many of my uncles, I look up to them. I want to do what they're doing. They're playing football, I want to do that. They are studying a particular course, or they're in a particular field. I'm interested because when they talk about it, it excites me. So it's not only you showing good examples to your children and your wife, the other people that are looking up to you. You'll be surprised when people tell you that what you said at one point, maybe 15 years ago,
It
made
really
a
helped
difference to their life, whether positively or negatively. So I want to say, so coming back to the question, how do you do that? How do you support you have to know yourself first as a man. You have to know your strengths.
Yeah.
As a man, someone like most men, they say, oh, they don't talk much. They keep things to themselves. Me, I'm guilty of that. I'm not someone that talks so much about issues, about my problems. I like to say, let's solve the problem of the family and keep myself. But you need to be able to know yourself first and know your strength. And then you need to try and understand and speak more with your wife. And I think when you speak more and you communicate more with your wife, you can know where to help your wife. And also the environment you are is important. Some of these things that work in Nigeria or in an African setting is different when you move away from that into an European setting. Completely different. The way you support your wife in Nigeria is different from the way you support your wife when she comes to the UK or you move your family to the UK. It's completely different. And as an African man, as a Nigerian man, you need to understand that. So that you don't get into trouble. Listening to a very weird statistic recently that people coming into the UK from Nigeria are divorcing. And I was wondering, why is that the reason why? It's
Hold
because,
that thought there.
yeah,
Hold that thought there.
Yeah.
Because I think
Yeah.
we are going into something really interesting. But I
Yeah.
just want to bring us back
Yeah.
to, because like I said, a lot of women that are watching this, it's like you said, the environment in Nigeria is very different from it is here. And, we do have to admit that we are Nigerians. When you're in Nigeria, you get that help, you get that support.
Yeah.
But in the UK, there is just so much that you're expected to do as a woman. There is the flexibility and possibly to a large extent the resources available to do it. But my specific question is, how can you be an ally to your partner? How can you help your wife at home? Childcare, it's not cheap. I know of Nigerian men that when I first got married, I was really concerned about how much my partner is going to be helping me. How do you balance that respect for your husband with also being an ally?
I think I'll thank God for how I was brought up. I've been one person that had the ideology that I don't mind being in the kitchen cooking for my wife.
Wow.
That's my own ideology.
That's amazing.
I'll be coming from a different perspective
Yeah.
of the kind of man that a Nigerian man or
Yes.
an African man should.
Yes.
My mom knew me right from the onset that I love to cook.
Yeah.
That's one thing I love to do, and I know some people can testify to that.
Yes.
So it's something that I know. Balancing things in the family. A man shouldn't look at himself alone as just a provider of the currency. There are other currencies
I like that.
needs to be
Provider of the
spent in the
currency,
home.
yeah.
Because you should know that you're there to support your wife mentally,
Yeah.
emotionally, also physically,
Yeah.
and not just financially.
Yeah.
A lot of men think, oh yeah, because I work, I should just support financially.
Yeah.
As long as I'm bringing the currency, the financial currency.
And I think that's really important to emphasize because, as black and minority group, our men have been brought up to think that, and it's not really their fault, it's just the way the society sees them. You're just a provider. And now we have a new generation whereby we're now trying to say, actually, you're not just there to provide money.
Yeah.
You're there to change the nappies.
Yeah.
You're there to wash the plates. You're there to look after the children emotionally.
Yeah.
My question is really going down to that latter part of my previous statement around the children. How do you pass on these qualities to your children? Because the ones that you were passed was for a different generation. But they are growing up in a generation that is moving swiftly. There's AI, there's all sort of societal pressures. How do you pass this on to your children, the right way of doing things, and especially the support for their family?
I think it's accepting the fact. So you have to stress the fact that as a man, the same way you decide every day when you help people,
Yeah.
that same way you have to be intentional about helping.
Yeah.
So it starts with like she's when you wake up, the next question is how can I help?
Yeah.
Because you may think this is the help she needs, whereas she needs your help.
Yeah.
This is what she needs you to do. And I think that way you then get to understand how the routine works. So she can now put some trust in you.
Yeah.
That if she's not around,
Yeah.
it's not chaos.
To be honest, I think sometimes we just say, yes, we're going to accept the way we do it.
Yeah.
We do it, not necessarily because we're
So
satisfied.
at least she has an idea, like you can now reflect her thinking as regards things like that. I
And I
keep
think
saying
that's
these things, but
important
it is not easy.
It is not easy.
But you have to be intentional
Yeah.
about it. So what I think has really helped me is I tell myself, doing this for my family.
Yeah.
And I tell myself, I get blessed every time I support my family.
Hold that thought
Yeah.
there because I want to go back to the blessings part of it. And Radai, I just want to come back to you because the Bible says, train your child in the way they should go so that when they grow up, they will not depart from it. In terms of what Goke has just told us about helping your wife and, making sure you're aligned in what she wants so that you can reflect that. How do you then pass that on to your children? How do you train your children in that way?
I think, growing up, my dad, we had this habit in the house where we had daily devotion. As Christians, we should always remember that. And even as we teach the children the biblical upbringing and the biblical ethics, where we want them to have, we should also remember to also instill in them the habits to see those things we do.
Oh, I like that. Instill in them the habits to see
The thing we do.
Yeah.
Now, what they see is what lives on with them. Because when they see us doing it as fathers, they remember they can help their younger sisters, they can help their elder sisters, they can help their mom in those things that, the little things they do. And before you know it, it grows with them. So the way we do things at home matters a lot. It goes a very long way. And also teaching them the word of God also goes a long way.
Thank you for that. And I really like what you put there about instilling in them and allowing them to see those things so that they can, it's not just that they're watching it on TV, but it's something that they see every day. So it becomes a norm. When they're growing up. They don't say it as, maybe this means I'm not man enough. But I want to come to you, Brother Akin, in terms of a man, especially a man and the children in the house, and about the influence of a man. How, as a man, in Nigeria, again, or in the black community generally, as a man, as a father, you go in, the children start running around. There's this fear that you instill in them. Or at least that's the way some of us were brought up. How do you balance that with the role of a man in a society in 21st century and how you use a softer approach with the children without losing your influence as a man in the home and contradicting how you've been brought up?
I think the first thing I'd like to let people know is that your children, they don't need to love you as a man. I know it's controversial.
Your children don't need to love you,
but they need to respect you. Your children need to respect you. The reason for that is that they need to respect you because what you say most of the time is right. The way you say it now is what now comes to the 21st century. When we were growing up, we don't ask questions. We don't debate. We don't say, I can't hear you. Even if they are calling you 20 miles away, you must hear. You must comply. You must deliver. No questions asked. Fortunately and unfortunately, in this generation now, you have kids that are influenced by YouTubers. That's why I'm happy about what we are doing today. We need to put positive and right messages out there. Children's minds are in trouble because of what they are listening to on TV. We are no more the first influence of children anymore. The YouTube, the TV.
But how can we take that influence back?
Yeah, so that's what I'm saying. That's what I'm saying. What we are doing now.
How can we take the influence
what we are
back?
doing now is so important that we are putting these kind of messages out there. We don't know what will happen in the next 10, 15 years. Someone may be listening to this message and say, what these people are putting out is very important. So that's why I say your children don't need to love you. What you need is to make sure that they respect you. As a father, you need to do a lot of research. I watch almost all the YouTube channels that my children watch. I need to find out what they are doing on those YouTube channels. I need to understand if their teacher says something in person, I put it in my mind. I go and research on it. It's so important now. A father has to be intelligent, unfortunately. As a father, you need to be intelligent because that's how will help you to send the message to your children. You know how to do that. Because if you don't put the right message out there, not just that in the right way. So one thing I would say to answer that question, one, a father has to be intelligent. Pray for intelligence, pray for wisdom as a father. It's so important. Secondly, do research. Just don't focus on your work. My father focused on his work. In our own generation, our fathers, they focus on their work. They call home, put the money down, as Daniel said, and that's it. Our father don't really do any research what happens in your school. A child, go to school and do well. I don't want to know if someone is bullying you. And when we were growing up in school, secondary school, there were so many kids that were, we were fighting, defending ourselves. Our parents don't know. But now, when kids get bullied now, they go to YouTube and look at, someone is bullying me. How do I defend myself? How do I retaliate? And becomes a problem. Yeah. So as a father, you need to do a lot of research. But you need to work with your wife. You need to work with your partner to Like me, I'm usually on the hard side. My wife's usually on the soft side when it comes to the kids.
Back.
Yeah, so you need to work with your partner. You have to get a balance because
like
they need
that.
They need that. Those are the kind of traits you can pass into your children. But the one good thing that we have now at the moment is that the heart of children are a sponge.
They absorb a lot of information. And the
more we pump in the right information, no doubt they are still getting the wrong information there, and the wrong information smells good, feels good. But I think we need to work with our partner. You need to do a lot of research. You need to find out what are kind of things happening in your children's school. The bullies in their school, you need to know them. People giving them wrong information. Sometimes they come home and they say, they'll tell, this is what happens. They may say, the world will never end, or something like that. You need to know who is giving that information. And you have to know the background of who they are playing with. So I think those are the kind of ways.
And I like that. I like what you said there about, for me, I think it's really about that information and how they absorb that information and being able to pump them with the right information. And as you said, the influence in the society. We are going to take a short break now, a quick 2 minutes break. But when we come back, I really want to focus on the role of men in the society. How can fathers help to resolve this emptiness that seems to be among the black community? You know, there is a lot of divorce. There are a lot of young men that are growing up without fathers. And further down the line, we realize that we as a community are then overrepresented in the prison system and not as much at the CEO level. What can we as fathers bring in young children into, well, you as fathers, not me, do to, reduce that gap and readdress the imbalance? So stay with us. This is going to be an exciting second half. Hope to speak to you soon.